Greetings, lasses and chaps. Welcome to Mystery Maven. Today we shall peruse a thrilling tale. The Murder at the Vicarage is a work of detective fiction by the British writer Agatha Christie, first published in the UK by the Collins Crime Club in October 1930, and in the US by Dodd, Mead and Company later in the same year. So let's hie ourselves to the fun. The Murder at the Vicarage, by Agatha Christie. Chapter 1. It is difficult to know where to begin this story, but I have chosen a particular Wednesday at the Vicarage. This is because the conversation around the table contained details which affected later developments. I had just finished cutting some meat, which was very tough, and said, waving the knife in a way that was not at all appropriate for a vicar, that anyone who murdered Colonel Prothero would be doing the world a favour. My young nephew Dennis said, "We'll all remember that when the old man is found covered in blood. And Mary will describe how you waved the knife in a violent manner, won't you, Mary?" But Mary, who is a servant at the vicarage, just put a dish of unpleasant-looking cabbage on the table and left the room. "I am sorry that I am so useless at taking care of the house," said my wife, whose name is Griselda. She is 20 years younger than I am, very pretty, and unable to take anything seriously. "My dear," I said, "if you would only try. But when I'm trying things just get worse. So it is better to leave things to Mary, who gives us awful things to eat. Now tell me more about Colonel Prothero." "Unpleasant man," said Dennis. "It is not surprising that his first wife left him." "Darling," said Griselda, "why were you so angry with Colonel Prothero? Was it anything to do with Mr. Hawes?" "Hawes is our new curate, whom Colonel Prothero dislikes." "No, it was because of Mr. Price Ridley's pound note." Mr. Price Ridley, a member of my church, had put a pound note in the collection bag. Later, when she was reading the amount collected on the church notice board, she saw that no pound note had been received. So she complained to Colonel Prothero, who is a churchwarden. "He wants to look at all the church accounts," I said. "He's coming here tomorrow evening so we can do it together. Does he think I have stolen church money? But now I must get on with preparing my sermon. What are you doing this afternoon, Griselda?" "My duty as the wife of a vicar. Tea and talk at 4:30. Who is coming?" "Mr. Price Ridley, Miss Weatherby, Miss Hartnell, and that terrible Miss Marple." "I rather like Miss Marple," I said. "She has a sense of humour, and she always knows every single thing that happens in the village," said Griselda, "and explains them in the worst possible way." "Well, don't expect me in for tea," said Dennis. "The Protheros have invited me to play tennis today." What luck! He quickly left the room, and Griselda and I went into my study. "I wonder what we will talk about at tea," said Griselda. "Mr. Lestrange, I suppose. It's so mysterious, isn't it? The way she suddenly rented a house here and hardly ever goes outside it. It's like a detective story. You know, who is she, the mysterious woman with the pale, beautiful face? Nobody knows." "You read too many detective stories," I said. "Now I must start my sermon." "Do you know," said Griselda, "I could have married a politician, a lord, a rich businessman, but instead I chose you. Didn't that surprise you?" "Yes. I often wondered why." Griselda laughed. "It made me feel powerful. The other men all thought I was wonderful. But I am the sort of woman you most dislike, and yet you adore me, don't you? I do care about you, my dear." "Oh, Len, you adore me," Griselda said. "But you don't deserve me. So, I will have a love affair with the artist who is painting my picture. I will. Just think of the talk in the village." She kissed me and stepped through the open glass door into the garden. Chapter 2. I had been in a good mood for writing, but now I felt uncomfortable. Then, as I picked up my pen, Lettice Prothero wandered in. Lettice is a pretty girl, tall and fair and delicate. She came through the glass door, pulled off her little yellow hat, and said, "Is Dennis about?" There is a path from Old Hall, where she lives, to our garden gate, so most people coming from there come to the study window instead of going along the road to the front door. Dennis said he was going to play tennis at your place. He said you had asked him. Lettice sat down on the sofa. "I think I did. Only that was Friday, and today is Tuesday." "It's Wednesday," I said. "Yeah." "Oh, then is Griselda here?" She's in the studio with Lawrence Redding." "There's been some trouble about him," said Lettice. "With father? What about?" I asked. "About him painting my picture. I was wearing my bathing dress. Father found out about it. It really is stupid. I go on the beach in my bathing dress. But now father won't allow Lawrence into the house. If I had some money, I would go away. If father died, then I would be all right. You must not say things like that, Lettice. Well, I'm not surprised my mother left him. Do you know, for years I believed she was dead. I wonder where she is. Father's new wife, Anne, hates me." She got up. "I must go." I said I would look at Dr. Stone's barrow. And she wandered out again and across the garden. I thought about Dr. Stone, who was a well-known archaeologist. He had come to stay at the Blue Boar Inn while he examined an old burial ground on Colonel Prothero's land. There had already been a disagreement between them. I wondered how Lettice would get on with Dr. Stone's secretary. Miss Cram is a healthy young woman with pink cheeks and a loud voice. She is the complete opposite of Lettice. I had one more interruption. My curate, Hawes, wanted to know if my interview with Prothero had anything to do with him. I told him that it had not. Then I saw that the hands of the clock pointed to 5:15, which meant that it was really 4:30, so I got up and went to the sitting room. 4 ladies, holding teacups, were gathered there with Griselda. I sat down between Miss Marple and Miss Weatherby. "We were just talking," said Griselda, "about Dr. Stone and Miss Cram." "No nice girl would do it," Miss Weatherby said. "Do what?" I asked. "Be a secretary to an unmarried man." "Oh, my dear," said Miss Marple, "I think married ones are the worst." "Don't you think," said my wife, "that Miss Cram might just like having an interesting job?" There was silence. Then Miss Marple patted Griselda's arm. "You think the best of everyone." "But do you really think she is attracted to that boring old man?" Griselda said. "He got angry with Colonel Prothero the other day," said Miss Marple. "The colonel accused him of knowing nothing about archaeology." "How like Colonel Prothero, and what nonsense," said Mr. Price Ridley. "Very like Colonel Prothero, but perhaps it was not nonsense," said Miss Marple. "We do sometimes trust people too easily. There has also been some talk about that young artist Mr. Redding, hasn't there?" said Miss Weatherby. "Did Lettice tell you about it?" Miss Marple asked me. I saw her go round to the study window. Miss Marple lives next door and sees everything, usually when she is gardening. "She mentioned it, yes," I admitted. "Oh!" cried Miss Weatherby. "And I saw Dr. Haydock coming out of Mr. Lestrange's cottage." "Perhaps she's ill," suggested Mr. Price Ridley. "No," said Miss Hartnell. "I saw her walking round her garden this afternoon." "She and Dr. Haydock may be old friends," said Mr. Price Ridley. "Yes." "I do know," said Griselda. Everyone leaned forward. "You..." "That when they were abroad, her husband was killed, and Dr. Haydock rescued her." The excitement rose. Then Miss Marple said, "Bad girl. If you make things up, people often believe them, and sometimes that leads to problems." "I wonder if there is a romance between the artist Lawrence Redding and Lettice Prothero," said Miss Weatherby. "Not Lettice." Miss Marple seemed thoughtful. "But perhaps another person." She was looking at Griselda as she spoke, and I suddenly felt very angry. "Don't you think, Miss Marple," I said, "that problems may be caused by careless talk?" "Dear Vicar," said Miss Marple, "careless talk is often unkind, but it is also often true." Chapter 3. "Awful old woman," said Griselda, when the ladies had gone. "Len, do you really think I am having a romance with Lawrence Redding?" "No, of course not. But I do wish you would be more careful in what you say." "Lawrence never even tries to kiss to me," she said. "I can't understand why. He knows that you're a married woman. You don't want him to kiss you, do you?" "Not really," said Griselda. "If he's in love with Lettice Prothero." Miss Marple didn't think he was. Miss Marple may be wrong. She never is. Griselda paused, then said, "You do believe me, don't you, when I say there's nothing between Lawrence and me?" "My dear," I said. "Of course, dear Len." My wife kissed me. "You'd believe me whatever I said, wouldn't you?" And then she left the room. There were very few people that evening at the Wednesday church service, but afterwards, as I left, I saw a woman standing and looking up at one of our coloured glass windows. It was Mr. Lestrange. "These windows are beautiful," she said. We walked down the road, which went past her house. When we reached her gate, she said, "Please, come in and tell me what you think of my new home." It was arranged very simply, but perfectly, and I wondered what had made Mr. Lestrange come to St. Mary Mead. It seemed odd for such a cultured woman to be living in a small country village. She was a very tall woman. Her hair was red gold, and her makeup was perfect. She also had the most unusual eyes I have ever seen, for they were almost golden, too. While we talked about pictures, books, and old churches, I felt that Mr. Lestrange really wanted to talk to me about something else. When I left to go home, I looked back and saw her watching me with an anxious expression. "If there is anything I can do," I said. "It's very kind of you," she replied. "It's difficult. No, I don't think anyone can help me." I returned to the vicarage by the garden gate. As I closed it, I suddenly decided to go down to our shed, which Lawrence Redding was using as a studio, to look at Griselda's picture while no one was there. I opened the door and then stopped. There was a man and a woman in the studio. The man's arms were round the woman and he was kissing her. The two people were Lawrence Redding and Mr. Prothero. I backed out and walked quickly to my study. The discovery was a great shock to me. Suddenly, there was a knock on the glass door. I got up to open it, and Mr. Prothero came straight in. The quiet, controlled woman had disappeared. Instead, I was looking at a quick-breathing, desperate creature. For the first time, I realized that Anne Prothero was beautiful. She had brown hair, a pale face, and very deep grey eyes. You saw just now?" she said. "Yes. We love each other." I said nothing. "I suppose to you that is very wrong. You are a married woman." "Oh, do you think I haven't thought about that again and again? I'm not a bad woman. I just don't know what to do. I'm so unhappy. No woman could be happy with my husband. I wish he was dead. That's awful, but I do." I said the things to her that it was my duty to say, remembering all the time how that morning I had said that a world without Colonel Prothero would be a better place. When she left, she thanked me. But I felt worried because I now knew that Anne Prothero was the kind of woman who would stop at nothing when her emotions took control. And she was madly in love with Lawrence Redding. Chapter 4. I had completely forgotten that we had asked Lawrence Redding to dinner that night. When Griselda told me, I was shocked. "I thought about what you said at lunch," she told me, "and I've found some good things to eat." Sadly, our dinner only proved Griselda had been right when she'd said that the more she tried, the worse things went. The menu was expensive, but Mary seemed to have enjoyed undercooking and overcooking everything. However, Lawrence Redding was a very good guest. He has dark hair, his eyes are bright blue, and he can tell a good story. Griselda and Dennis kept telling jokes, and Lawrence cheerfully joined in. However, I was not surprised when after dinner he suggested we went to my study. As soon as we were alone, his manner changed. This isn't the usual sort of love affair between Anne and me. I told him that people had been saying that since the beginning of time, and a strange little smile touched his lips. Of course, if this were a book, the old man would die, and no one would be sorry. I told him that was a cruel thing to say. "Oh, I didn't mean I was going to put a knife in his back, though I'd thank anyone who did. I'm surprised the first Mr. Prothero didn't kill him. You don't know how Anne suffers. If I had enough money, I'd take her away now." Then I spoke to him very seriously and asked him to leave St. Mary Mead. If he stayed, people would start to talk about his relationship with Anne. Colonel Prothero would hear about it, and things would be made much worse for her. But everyone thinks my interest is in Lettice. "Haven't you thought," I asked, "that Lettice might think that too?" Lawrence seemed surprised. Lettice didn't care about him at all. At that moment, Griselda and Dennis came in and said, I must not stop Lawrence from enjoying himself. "Oh, how I would like some excitement," Griselda said. "A murder, or just a robbery. I don't suppose there's anything worth stealing," said Lawrence. "Unless we stole Miss Hartnell's false teeth." "They do make an awful noise," said Griselda. "But you're wrong about there being nothing worth stealing. There's some wonderful old silver at Old Hall, including a 17th-century tazza, worth thousands of pounds. The old man would probably shoot you. said Dennis. "Oh, we'd get in first and tell him to put his hands up," said Griselda. "Has anyone got a gun?" "I've got a Mauser," said Lawrence. How exciting. Why do you have it?" "Souvenir of the war." "Prothero was showing the silver to Dr. Stone today," said Dennis. Stone was pretending to be very interested in it. "Well," Lawrence said, "I must go. Thank you for a very pleasant evening." On Thursday, I was leaving the church and going home for lunch when I met Colonel Prothero. "That criminal Mr. Archer," he shouted. "He came out of prison yesterday and is promising to punish me. Why? Because when I, as a magistrate, sent him to prison, I did not consider his wife and children." "What nonsense! I am sure you agree with me." "You forget," I said. "As a vicar, I believe in forgiveness." "Nonsense. What we need is strong Christianity. So, I'll come to the vicarage this evening, as we arranged, at 6:15. And he walked away. I went home, had lunch, and went out again to visit some people. Griselda had gone to London by the cheap Thursday train. When I returned at about 3:45, Mary told me that Mr. Redding was waiting for me in the study. He looked very pale. "Vicar, you were right. I must leave the village." "I think you have made the right decision," I said. "Will you look after Anne?" "Of course. I will do everything I can to help her." "Thank you." He shook my hand. "I will leave tomorrow." When he had gone, I tried to write my sermon, but at 5:30 the telephone rang. I was told that Mr. Abbott of Low Farm was dying and asked to come at once. Low Farm was nearly 2 miles away, and I could not possibly get back by 6:15. I rang up Old Hall, but I was informed that Colonel Prothero had just gone out. So I told Mary that I would try to be back by 6:30, and left. It was nearly 7 when I returned. As I reached the vicarage gate, it opened, and Lawrence Redding came out. He was shaking all over. "Hello," I said. "Sorry I was out." Come back." "I've got to see Prothero, but we won't be long." "Prothero," he began to laugh. "Oh, you'll see Prothero all right." "Oh, yes." Worried, I stretched out a hand towards him. "No," he shouted. "I've got to get away. I've got to think." And he began to run down the road. I went on into the vicarage. The front door is always open, but I rang the bell and Mary answered it. "Is Colonel Prothero here?" I asked her. "He has been here since 6:15. "And Mr. Redding has been here?" "He came a few minutes ago. I told him you would be back soon, and that Colonel Prothero was waiting in the study. He said he'd wait too. He's in there now." "No, he isn't," I said. "I've just met him outside." "Well, he can't have stayed more than 2 minutes." I went down the passage and opened the study door. I took a few steps across the room and then stopped. I couldn't understand what was in front of me. Colonel Prothero was lying across my desk. There was a pool of some dark liquid by his head, and it was dripping onto the floor. I went across to him. His skin was cold. The man was dead, shot through the head. I called Mary and I ordered her to run and fetch Dr. Haydock. Haydock is a big man with an honest face. When he arrived, he bent over Colonel Prothero and examined him. Then he looked at me. "He's dead. He's been dead for half an hour, I think." "Suicide?" "No." "Look at the position of the wound. And where's the weapon? I better call the police." He picked up the telephone and gave the facts as simply as possible. "Is it murder?" I asked. "Looks like it." "There's one rather strange thing," I said. "This afternoon I was asked to go to a dying man, but when I got there everyone was very surprised. The man was much better, and his wife said she had not telephoned me." "So, someone wanted to get you out of the vicarage," Haydock said. "Where's your wife?" "Gone up to London for the day." "And the servant?" "In the kitchen, at the other side of the house, where she wouldn't hear anything that went on in the study. Who knew that Prothero was coming here this evening? He mentioned it this morning in the village, very loudly as usual. So everyone knew. There was the sound of feet in the passage outside, then the door opened. "Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Constable Hurst. The inspector will be here soon. Until then, I will ask the questions." He took out his notebook. I repeated my story of discovering the body. Then he turned to the doctor. "In your opinion, Dr. Haydock, what was the cause of death? Shot through the head." "And the weapon?" "I can't be sure until we get the bullet out. But it was probably a small pistol, say a Mauser 25. I suddenly remembered the conversation last night, and Lawrence Redding telling us he had a Mauser. Hurst asked Dr. Haydock, "When, in your opinion, did the death happen?" "He has been dead just over half an hour, I think. Certainly not longer." At this moment, Inspector Slack arrived. I've never met a man more different from his name. He was not just very energetic, but also extremely rude and bossy. Inspector Slack took his constable's notebook, read it, and strode over to the body. Then he looked at the things on the desk and examined the blood. "Ah," he said. When he fell forward, the clock was pushed over, and it stopped. "That will give us the time of the crime. 20. 2 minutes past 6. What time did you say he died, Doctor?" "I said about half an hour, but—" The inspector looked at his watch. 5 minutes past 7. "I heard about it 10 minutes ago, at 5 to 7. Discovery of the body was at about 7:15. And if you examined it at 10 minutes to, why, that brings it to the same second almost." I had been trying to speak. "About the clock." "Sir, I'll ask you any questions I want to know. Time is short. What I want is silence." "Yes, but I'd like to tell you." "Silence," said the inspector. So I gave him what he asked for. He was still looking at the desk. "Hello, what's this?" He held up a piece of notepaper. At the top was written 6:20. "Dear Clement." It began, "Sorry, I cannot wait any longer, but I must." Here the writing ended. "It's obvious," said Inspector Slack. "He sits down to write this. An enemy comes in through the glass door and shoots him." "I'd just like to tell," I began. "Out of the way, sir. I want to see if there are footprints." He moved towards the open window. "I think you ought to know," I said. The inspector turned. "Now, gentlemen, will you please get out of here?" We allowed ourselves to be pushed out like children. "Well," said Haydock, "when that bossy little man wants me, you can send him over to the surgery. Goodbye." Then Mary came to tell me that Griselda was back, so I went to the sitting room and told her everything. Finally, I said, "The letter is headed 625, and the clock fell over and has stopped at 6:22. "Yes," said Griselda. "But didn't you tell him that the study clock was always kept a quarter of an hour ahead?" "No," I said. "He wouldn't let me." "But, Len," Griselda said, "that is extraordinary, because when that clock said 20 past 6, it was really only 5 minutes past, and at 5 minutes past I don't suppose Colonel Prothero had even arrived at the house." Slack would come and ask me what it was I had wanted to tell him, so we were surprised when Mary told us that he had gone. Then Griselda said she would go to Old Hall. It will be so awful for Anne Prothero. Just after she left, Dennis returned from a tennis party. "I've always wanted to be right in the middle of a murder," he said, and went out into the garden to look for footprints. His cheerfulness rather upset me, but death means very little to a boy of 16. An hour later, Griselda came back. She had seen Anne Prothero just after the inspector had told her the news. "How did she seem?" I asked. "She was very quiet." "What about Lettice?" "She was out playing tennis somewhere." But Anne was really very quiet, very strange. "The shock?" I suggested. "I suppose so. And yet she didn't seem so much shocked as frightened." "Frightened?" "Yes. I wonder if she knows who killed him." She kept asking if there were any suspects, and then Dennis came in full of excitement because of a footprint he had found in one of the flower beds. He was sure that it was very important. But it was Mary, not Dennis, who brought us the sensational news next morning. We had just sat down to breakfast when she appeared at the door. "They've arrested Mr. Redding, arrested Lawrence," cried Griselda. "It must be some mistake." "No mistake," said Mary. "Mr. Redding went to the police station himself, last night. He went in, threw down the pistol and said, 'I did it.' Just like that." Satisfied, she left the room. "It can't be true," Griselda said. What reason could Lawrence have for killing Colonel Prothero? I could have answered that question, but I did not wish to involve Anne Prothero. Remember, I met him just outside the gate. He looked like a madman. "There's the clock, too," I said. Lawrence must have put it back to 6:20 to give himself an alibi. And Inspector Slack believed it. "You're wrong. Lawrence knew about that clock being ahead. 'Keeping the vicar up to time,' he used to say. He may have forgotten about it. No, if you were committing a murder, you'd be very careful about things like that. You don't know, my dear, I said. You've never done one. Before Griselda could reply, a shadow fell across the table, and a very gentle voice said, "Please forgive me." But after the sad news, it was Miss Marple. I opened the glass door, and she stepped inside and sat down with us. She looked a little pink and a little excited. Poor Colonel Prothero. Not a very pleasant man, but it's still sad. And shot in the vicarage study? But you, dear vicar, were not here at the time. I explained where I had been. "Is Dennis not with you this morning?" said Miss Marple. "Dennis is," said Griselda, "is very excited about a footprint he found, and has gone to tell the police about it." "Dear, dear," said Miss Marple. "So Dennis thinks he knows who committed the crime. Well, I suppose we all think we know. And I expect everyone thinks it is somebody different. That is why it is so important to have proof. I am sure I know who did it, but I haven't one bit of proof. Inspector Slack said he was coming to see me this morning, but has just phoned to say it won't be necessary." "I suppose that is because of the arrest," I said. "The arrest?" Miss Marple leaned forward. "I didn't know there had been an arrest." I said, "Yes, Lawrence Redding." "Lawrence Redding? Now I didn't think." "I can't believe it, even now," Griselda interrupted. "Even though he has confessed." "Confessed?" said Miss Marple. "Oh dear, I have been very mistaken. He gave himself up," said Griselda. "Oh," said Miss Marple. "I am so glad, so very glad. It does show he is truly sorry, I suppose," I said. "Sorry?" Miss Marple looked surprised. "Oh, but Vicar, you don't think that he is guilty? He has confessed." "Yes, but that just proves it." "I mean that he had nothing to do with it." "No," I said. "If you have not committed a murder, I cannot see the reason to pretend you have." "Oh, of course there's a reason," said Miss Marple. "There's always a reason. And young men are so hot-headed and so quick to believe the worst. If you had seen his face last night," I began. "Tell me," said Miss Marple. Quite did so. When I had finished, she said, "I know that I am very often rather stupid, but I really do not understand your point. It seems to me that if a young man had decided to take another man's life, he would not appear upset about it afterwards. It is difficult to imagine being in such a position, but I cannot believe I would be upset myself. But if there was an argument, I argued, the shot may have been fired in sudden anger, and Lawrence might have been very upset afterwards about what he had done. But, Mr. Clement, it does not seem to me that the facts fit your argument. Your maid said that Mr. Redding was only in the house for 2 minutes, and the Colonel was shot while he was writing a letter. The letter also seems very strange. I mean—" She looked round. Lettice Prothero came in through the glass door. "I hear they've arrested Lawrence." "Yes," said Griselda. "Have you seen my hat here, a little yellow one?" said Lettice. "I think I left it in the study. If you did, it's there still," said Griselda. "I'll go and see," said Lettice. "I'm afraid you can't get it now," I said. "Inspector Slack has locked the room." "Oh, what a bore! Surely, Lettice, a yellow hat won't be much good to you just now. You mean I should wear black? I won't bother." "It's awfully old-fashioned." A strange smile came to her lips. "I think I'll go home and tell Anne that Lawrence has been arrested." She went out of the French window again. Miss Marple was smiling. "That child is not half so dreamy as she pretends to be. She's got a very definite idea in her head, and she's acting upon it." There was a loud knock on the dining-room door. "Colonel Melchet's here," Mary said. "He wants to see the master." I got up at once. In Chapter 7, Colonel Melchet is the chief constable. He is small and has red hair. "Poor old Prothero," he said. "I didn't like him, of course. Nobody did. But I'm shocked at young Redding doing it. And I was surprised when I heard he had confessed." "What happened exactly?" "About 10 o'clock last night, Redding comes in, throws down a pistol and says to the police, 'Here I am.' I did it. Just like that." "Did he describe what happened?" I asked. "Not much. Said he came here to see you and found Prothero. They argued, and he shot him. Won't say what the argument was about. I've heard gossip about Redding and the daughter. Was that the trouble?" "No," I said. "It was something very different, but I can't say more just now." He nodded. "Thank you. Well, I've got to see Dr. Haydock. He was called out to a patient, but he should be back by now." Like to come along? Haydock's house is next door to mine. The doctor had just come in and was eating a plate of eggs and bacon in the dining room. Sorry, I had to go out. Babies, not us, decide when they'll arrive. But I've got the bullet for you. He pushed a little box along the table. Melchett examined it. .25? Haydock nodded. Silly young fellow. Amazing that nobody heard the shot. Yes, said Melchett. The kitchen is on the other side of the house, I said. And the servant was the only person at home. But it's strange, said Melchett. I wonder why Miss Marple didn't hear it. The study window was open. Perhaps she did, said Haydock. No, I said. She didn't say anything about it, and she would have done if she had heard it. What about a silencer? Nobody would hear anything then. I noticed that Dr. Haydock was looking very cheerful this morning, but he also looked as though he was trying to hide it. Melchett shook his head. Slack didn't find a silencer, and he asked Redding. At first, Redding didn't seem to know what he was talking about, and then said he didn't use one. I can't believe he is a murderer. Well, I shall never forget his face when I met him outside my gate, or the way he said, "Oh, you'll see Prothero all right." That should have made me suspect what had just happened. Haydock stared at me. What do you mean? What had just happened? When do you think Redding shot him? A few minutes before I got to the house. The doctor shook his head. Impossible. He had been dead much longer than that. But, Haydock, the colonel said, if Redding admits shooting him at 6:45. Haydock's face had gone suddenly grey. It's impossible. I'm a doctor, and I know. The blood had begun to congeal. But if Redding is lying... Melchett stopped. We'd better go down to the police station and see him. Chapter 8. Inspector Slack was at the police station, and soon we were sitting opposite Lawrence Redding. Now, Melchett said, you say you went to the vicarage at about 6:45. You found Prothero there, argued with him, shot him, and left. Yes, I killed Prothero. Ah, well, Melchett replied. How did you manage to have a pistol with you? It was in my pocket. You took it to the vicarage? Yes. Why? I always take it. Why did you change the time of the clock? The clock. Redding seemed confused. Yes, the hands pointed to 6:22. Oh, that, yes. I changed it. There was a noise outside. A constable brought in a note. For the vicar. It's very urgent. I tore it open and read, Please, please come to me. I don't know what to do. I want to tell someone. Please come now. And bring anyone you want with you. Am Prothero. I showed it to Melchett. As we all went out together, I looked over my shoulder and saw Lawrence Redding's face. His eyes were looking at the note in my hand, and I have never seen such pain in any human being's face. As we walked over to Old Hall, I told Melchett and Haydock how I had seen Redding and Mr. Prothero kissing in the studio. When we got there, a manservant opened the door. Good morning, said Melchett. Will you tell Mr. Prothero we are here? Then we would like to ask you a few questions. The servant hurried away, and returned to say that she would see us soon. Now, said Melchett, was your master here for lunch yesterday? Yes, sir. What happened after lunch? Mr. Prothero went upstairs for a rest, and the colonel went to his study. Miss Lettice went out to a tennis party. Colonel and Mr. Prothero had tea at 4:30. At 5:30 they were driven to the village. Immediately after they had left, Mr. Clement rang up and I told him that they had gone out. But Mr. Redding did not come to the house yesterday, said Melchett. No, sir. Did anyone else come? Not yesterday. And the day before? Mr. Dennis Clement came in the afternoon. And Dr. Stone was here. And a lady came in the evening. A lady? Melchett said. Who was she? It was a lady the servant had not seen before, and she had asked for Colonel Prothero, not Mr. Prothero. How long did the lady stay? Half an hour, he thought. And, yes, he remembered her name now, Mr. Lestrange. We were very surprised by this, but at that moment a message came that Mr. Prothero would see us. Anne was in bed. Her face was pale, but had a strange, determined expression. Thank you for coming so quickly, she said. Once I had made the decision to tell you, I wanted to do it as soon as possible. So, Colonel Melchett, it was I who killed my husband. Colonel Melchett said, "My dear Mr. Prothero, it's true. I hated him, and yesterday I shot him. Did you know, Mr. Prothero, that Lawrence Redding has already confessed to the crime?" Anne nodded. "He's in love with me. It was very good of him, but very silly. He knew that it was you who killed your husband." "Yes." "How did he know?" She paused. "I told him. I don't want to talk about it any more. Where did you get the pistol, Mr. Prothero?" "The pistol? Oh, it was my husband's. I got it out of the drawer beside his bed." "And you took it with you to the vicarage?" "Yes. I knew he would be there." "What time was this?" "It must have been after 6, 1/4, something like that." "You took the pistol meaning to shoot your husband?" "No, meaning to shoot myself. But I went to the study window. I looked in. I saw my husband, and I fired. And then? Then I went away." "Did anybody see you entering or leaving the vicarage?" "Yes. Miss Marple. She was in her garden. She closed her eyes. I've told you everything. Please go now." "I'll stay with her," Dr. Haydock whispered to Melchett, "while you make the necessary arrangements." As Melchett and I left the bedroom, I saw a thin man come out of another room along the passage. "Are you Colonel Prothero's personal servant?" I asked. "Yes, sir. Do you know whether he kept a pistol anywhere?" "I have never seen one. Not in one of the drawers beside his bed." The man shook his head. "He didn't have a pistol. I would have seen it if he had." I hurried down the stairs after Melchett. Mr. Prothero had lied about the pistol. Why? Chapter 9. After he had left a message at the police station, the chief constable said he was going to visit Miss Marple. "Please, can you come with me, Vicar?" he said. "I don't want to frighten her." I smiled. Miss Marple is as strong as any chief constable. We rang the bell and were shown by a maid into the sitting room. When I had introduced Colonel Melchett to Miss Marple, he said, "I want to talk to you about Colonel Prothero's death. Your house is next door to the vicarage, so perhaps you saw something that would help us. In fact, I was in my garden from 5 o'clock onwards yesterday, and from there, well, I can see everything that is happening next door." "I believe that Mr. Prothero passed by your garden yesterday evening?" "Yes. Just after 6:15. She said she was meeting her husband at the vicarage. She went in by the back gate." "And she went inside the vicarage?" Melchett asked. "Yes. But I suppose Colonel Prothero wasn't there yet, because she came back almost immediately and walked down to the studio." "I see. And you didn't hear a shot?" "I didn't hear a shot then," said Miss Marple. "But you did hear one?" "Yes, I think there was a shot somewhere in the woods. 5 or 10 minutes afterwards." "Oh, could it have been?" She stopped, pale with excitement. "So, Mr. Prothero went down to the studio," said Colonel Melchett. "Why, yes. Then Mr. Redding came to the vicarage gate, looked all round." "And saw you, Miss Marple?" "No, because I was bending down. He went down to the studio. Mr. Prothero came to the door, and they both went inside." "And they came out? When?" Colonel Melchett asked. "About 10 minutes later. And Dr. Stone came down the path from Old Hall, so they all walked towards the village together. At the end of the road, I think they were joined by Miss Cram. It must have been Miss Cram because her skirt was so short." "Well then," said Colonel Melchett, "did you also see Mr. Prothero's and Mr. Redding's expressions as they walked along the road?" "They were smiling and talking," said Miss Marple. "They seemed very happy." "Strange," said the Colonel. Then Miss Marple gave us both a shock as she said, "Has Mr. Prothero confessed to the crime now?" "Well," said the Colonel. "How did you guess that?" "Well, I thought she might," said Miss Marple. "I think Lettice thought so too. She's really a very clever girl. So Anne Prothero says she killed her husband. Well, I'm almost sure that isn't true. When does she say she shot him?" "At 20 minutes past 6, just after speaking to you." "What did she shoot him with?" "A pistol." "Where did she find it?" "She brought it with her." "No," said Miss Marple. "She had no gun with her. It might have been in her handbag. She wasn't carrying a handbag." "But it all fits together," Melchett said. "The time, the overturned clock pointing to 6:22. "No," I interrupted. And I told him about the clock. Melchett was annoyed. "Why didn't you tell Slack this last night?" "Because he wouldn't let me. Nonsense. And if a third person claims to have done this murder, I shall go mad. "Colonel Melchett," Miss Marple said, "why don't you tell Mr. Redding what Mr. Prothero has done, and explain that you don't believe her, and then tell Mr. Prothero that Mr. Redding is innocent? Well, then they might both tell you the truth. But they are the only two people who had a reason for killing Prothero." "Oh, do you really think so? Well, can you think of anyone else?" "Oh, yes," said Miss Marple. She counted her fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yes, and a possible 7. "I can think of at least 7 people who might be very happy to have Colonel Prothero dead." 7 people? In St. Mary Mead, Melchett said. Miss Marple nodded brightly. "There is a lot of wickedness in the world. A good soldier like you doesn't know about these things. I thought the Chief Constable was going to explode with anger." Chapter 10. As I entered the vicarage, I could hear voices. I opened the sitting-room door, and on the sofa beside Griselda sat Gladys Cram, Dr. Stone's secretary. "Good morning, Mr. Clement," she said. "Isn't the news awful? A murder in this quiet village." "So Gladys came round to find out all about it," Griselda said. Miss Cram laughed loudly. "A girl also wants a bit of excitement. And, Mr. Clement, you are the only person in the village I can talk to, except a lot of old women." "There's Lettice Prothero," I said. She shook her head. "She's too grand to talk to a girl who has to work to earn money, although I did hear her saying she wanted to work herself. She's not very happy at home." "Well, who would be happy with a stepmother? I wouldn't put up with it." "Ah, but you're strong," said Griselda. Miss Cram was obviously pleased. "That's me. And I've told Dr. Stone that I must have regular times off. These scientists, they think a girl's a kind of machine. Dr. Stone thinks only about archaeology." "Is he at the Barrow now?" asked Griselda. Miss Cram shook her head. "He's not very well this morning. But do tell me, Mr. Clement, what do the police think about the murder?" "Well," I said, "things are a little uncertain." "Ah! Then they don't think Lawrence Redding did it." "So good-looking, isn't he? Like a film star?" I couldn't believe it when I heard the police had arrested him. "They're very stupid, aren't they?" "Mr. Redding came in and confessed," I said. "Why? What did he kill Prothero for?" "It's not certain that he did kill him, but why would he say he had done it if he hadn't?" I could think of no answer to this. Well, she got up. "I suppose I must go." And with many thanks and goodbyes, she left. So I told Griselda everything that had happened that morning, then rang the bell for Mary. When she came in, I asked her, "Mary, are you sure you didn't hear the shot yesterday evening?" "The shot that killed old Prothero?" "No, of course I didn't. If I had, I would have gone in to see what had happened." "Yes, but did you hear any other shot, one down in the woods, perhaps?" "Oh, that." Mary paused. Just one. Strange sort of noise it was. What time did you hear it?" "I don't know. Was it long before Mr. Redding came?" "No. 10 minutes, a quarter of an hour, not longer than that." I nodded. "Is that all?" said Mary. "Because the potatoes are probably burning. Yes, you can go." She left the room, and I turned to Griselda. "Don't you think it would be a good idea if Mary was taught how to cook?" "No. If she learned to cook, she would leave to get more money. So while Mary can't cook, we're safe, because nobody else would want her." "Also," continued Griselda, "you must forgive her for not caring about Colonel Prothero's death, because he sent her boyfriend to prison." "What for?" "For poaching. You know, that man, Archer. Mary has been with him for 2 years." "I didn't know that." "Darling Len, you never know anything." "It's strange," I said, "that everyone says the shot came from the woods." "It's not strange at all," said Griselda. "One often hears shots in the woods, so when you hear a shot, you naturally think it comes from there." The door opened again. "Colonel Melchett's back," said Mary. "And that police inspector, they're in the study." Chapter 11. As soon as I went in, Melchett said, "Inspector Slack does not believe that Redding is innocent." "If he didn't do it, why did he say that he did?" said Slack. "But Mr. Prothero did exactly the same." "That's different. She's a woman, and women act in that silly way. She heard he had confessed, so made up a story. But Redding's a man, and if he says he did it, well, then he did." Miss Marple saw him and Mr. Prothero leave the studio just after 6:30. Dr. Stone met them, and they walked together to the village. Mr. Prothero then went into Miss Hartnell's house to borrow a gardening magazine. Miss Hartnell says she stayed there until 7 o'clock, and Redding went with Stone to the Blue Boar for a drink. Then he went back to the vicarage and asked for the vicar at the front door. Mary told him that Colonel Prothero was there, so he went in and shot him, just as he said he did. Melchett shook his head. But the doctor says that Prothero was shot before 6:30. Oh, doctors, what do they know? Slack replied. But I touched the body and it was cold, I said. And why should I believe you, said Slack, when you did not tell me the truth about your clock? I tried to tell you several times, I said, and you refused to listen. Nonsense. And anyway, why do you keep your clock a quarter of an hour ahead? It is supposed, I said, to help me to be on time. Inspector, said Colonel Melchett, what we want is the true story from both Mr. Prothero and Mr. Redding. I have asked Dr. Haydock to bring Mr. Prothero over here, but I think we should see Redding first. I'll call the station, said Slack, and then we'll get to work on this room. I decided to leave them and found my wife and Miss Marple in the sitting room. I wish you could solve the crime, Miss Marple, Griselda said. Like you did when Miss Weatherby's bag of onions disappeared. And all because it reminded you of something very different, something about a bag of wood for the fire. You are laughing at me, said Miss Marple, but that is a very good way of finding the truth. It's what people call intuition. Intuition is like reading a word without having to spell it out. You know the word because you've seen it so often before. Do you understand, Vicar? Yes, I said. If a thing reminds you of something else, well, it's probably the same type of thing. Exactly. And what does the murder of Colonel Prothero remind you of? Miss Marple sighed. So many things. For example, there was Major Hargreaves, a respected churchwarden, and all the time he was keeping a second family, a former servant, and 5 children. What a terrible shock to his wife and daughter. I wish you would tell me, I said, who your 7 suspects are. Oh, but I mustn't mention names. You can think of them yourself, I am sure. I can't. There is Lettice Prothero, I suppose, because she probably gets money after her father's death. But I can't think of anyone else. I don't believe that it was Lawrence or Anne or Lettice, Griselda said. There must be some clue that would help us. There is the note, of course, said Miss Marple. It seems to fix the time of his death exactly, I said. And yet, is that possible? Mr. Prothero would only have just left the study. She would not have had time to reach the studio. What do you think, Miss Marple? Asked Griselda. I wasn't thinking about the time on the letter. What I find strange is what it said. I don't understand, I said. Colonel Prothero just wrote that he couldn't wait any longer. At 20 minutes past 6, said Miss Marple. Mary had told him that you wouldn't be in till 6:30, and he was willing to wait until then. And yet, at 20 past 6, he sits down and says he can't wait any longer. I looked at the old lady, feeling increased respect for her intelligence. Imagine, I said, that at about 6:30 Colonel Prothero sat down to write that he couldn't wait any longer. And as he was writing, someone came in through the garden doors, came up behind the colonel, and shot him. Then he saw the note and the clock, and he wrote 6.2a at the top of the letter and altered the clock to 6.22. He thought that it gave him a perfect alibi. Then there was that shot I heard, said Miss Marple. Yes, the sound was different from the usual sort of shot. Louder, I suggested. No, Miss Marple didn't think it had been louder, just different. Then she got up and said she really must get home.